Hello, hello. Welcome to the Shroom Podcast with your host, Lucy Wood. I am trained in psilocybin assisted healing and energy healing. And my biggest mission in this life is for you to open up your heart, your body, and soul and to release any trapped trauma you have, whether that's yours or any generational trauma, and to fully lead your best life. And that means my hustlers, my business owners, my fellow entrepreneurs and founders, those that are very successful externally, but deeply inside are pretty unfulfilled, suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD, anything else that's been diagnosed or we get put into a box for. This show is for you, and this episode is for you if you want to know the basics and the one-on-one on psilocybin. So, basically, anyone listening right now, psilocybin is a mushroom. Okay, so it is derived from the ground. It is a natural plant, and basically, it has come from the indigenous cultures. So, what they've done is it's been used for healing and spiritual practices for many, 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 many years. And I get this from a lot of my clients of being like, it's a drug. I'm not going to touch it. We've been told drugs are bad. And I agree, no to drugs. Absolutely not. This is naturally from a plant. This has come from the ground. This is brought into nature for us to use to connect and to heal. I'll leave it at that. It's up to you and your decision further on that one. So basically, how does it work in the brain? So when we ingest psilocybin, it turns into psilocin. So that helps with rewiring our neurotransmitters in our brain, aka rewiring the nerve cells in our brain to become more aligned with who we are, to rewire and release any trapped trauma, whether that's trauma that we have experienced ourselves, whether that's generational trauma that we've inherited from family members, and resulting in far more clear, aligned, authentic decisions, authentic moves, healthier bodies, healthier minds, healthier souls, and a healthier life. And the reason why I work with type A's, so people that are the go-getters, the hustlers, the business owners, is because, and I'm one of them, obviously, we are so conditioned to make things better. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people like us that are changing the world. But if it's resulting in a detriment to our health, our family, our relationships, our life, and our overall well being, it's not healthy. And typically, when that is the result, things like burnout happen. There can be an absolute rock bottom where, say, your partner leaves you, you lose your job, massive mistakes being made in your company if you're a founder, repeating patterns from like fast to famine, which I talk about quite a lot, of like earning big amounts of cash and then losing it all. These patterns are all results of self-sabotaging places, of not releasing trauma that is in our bodies. And it doesn't have to be like humongous amounts of trauma. It can be, but it can be little things as a child that we've been told to do, or things that we've been seen as like the caretaker or the people pleaser or the one that has everyone else's backs. There's just been so immensely wired into our brains that we don't really know what we want and who we want to be. And sometimes our bodies will start screaming. You can have like really bad issues with your body. If you're a woman, you can have fertility, PMS, womb issues, examples. Men, it can be things like depression, suicide is one of the biggest rates of killings for men under 40. These are all extreme results of not working through our trauma. And the reason why I really like to work with psilocybin is it's a very gentle plant, and it really helps to slowly make changes in your life. I'm not talking like a blitz your brains, fast track journey situation. I'm talking about microdosing. And microdosing is about 0.03 grams, so type of a form of a mushroom. And what it will do is gently, if you want to take it every 2 days or every day, it depends on your tolerance. And that's a whole different conversation itself. And that is tailored for you. That's not going to be advice I'm going to give today. it will work with really rewiring your brain and your nervous system. The most important part is that we're focusing on your emotional and your psychological impacts. So we're diving into reducing your anxiety, increasing empathy, enhancing creativity, and really healing that trauma within you. So if you want to get a little bit sciencey, a little bit nerdy with me, I'll give you some couple of stats. So recent studies highlight that psilocybin can efficiently cure PTSD and depression. And I never work with anyone that's on SSRIs or ADHD medication as examples. That's something that has to be weaned off, but you have to be in a safe space to be able to do that, because psilocybin works with healing those parts. And if you're taking a blocker, for example, which can be an antidepressant or like aka an SSRI, or you're taking ADHD medication, there's no shame in that. This is not that. If that's working for you, that's your choice. But if you are thinking of heading into taking something that's plant-based, medicine related, it will work as a blocker, because when you're taking something like an antidepressant, it is going to prevent you from feeling your feelings because they are so extreme, and your body and mind doesn't know how to work through them, how to ingest them, how to hold the space for them, how to release them. And then you take something like psilocybin and it's going to want to bring that up. So there's going to be this like extreme clash of the two, that it's not healthy for anyone that's in a secure mental state, let alone someone that's taking medication. It's not a good idea. So for anyone right now that's listening that wants to tap into the psychedelic realm, stop, pause, and really think about that, and seek medical professional advice from a doctor as well is incredibly important if that's where you're at. So what I always want to do is I want to explain how important, when you are taking something like psilocybin, how your environment and your setting is detrimental. So if you typically are doing, say, for example, like an 8-week program, you need to be in familiar surroundings. We don't want you heading to the jungle for 8 weeks. Why? Because the beauty is, when you're microdosing, you will get triggers and tests in your day-to-day life that are there to be processed and released. So it's perfect. So often what happens is if you get into a container of working with psilocybin, all of your triggers, or your biggest trigger or your biggest block that you're working through, will come up in pretty much every way possible. So for example, love and money are deeply connected because they both represent security and they also both represent freedom. So if you're often working through like a love block, your money will change as well. Whether that is in your business, in your relationships, there will be these deep connections and triggers that will come up in both, to bring up the actual traumas that you absorbed or the beliefs that you have held in your body for so many years to be released. And so this is why I go back to the importance of being in your environment. It's important to be in a normal environment that you're used to, but also it's super important to be able to have access to nature. And for any of my city workers out there, many of my suburban, urban lifestyle people, it doesn't mean go sit in a field. It means get into parks on your breaks, get out and just listen. Because what we're doing is we're reconnecting you back into nature. Often people that are in this high paced life are so disconnected from their bodies, they're not listening when to slow down. And that's when more mistakes are made, more chaos is created, more drama is created, because they're not listening and they're not making aligned, slow decisions. And I know the word slow can be pretty daunting for someone that works at a fast pace. This is myself included. But psilocybin, whether you like it or not, is going to slow you down. It's going to relax you. It's going to keep you, of course, still working and still being able to function. That's another question I get asked, like, can I still function when I'm on psilocybin? If you're microdosing, 100%, because you are functioning, you are taking a tiny percentage in your day-to-day life. And what you may notice varies across different things and different people, is you may notice that your vision changes. This is quite common with my clients. Your vision changes because you are readjusting to looking inwards, to seeing people in a different light. resulting in a lot more empathy, a lot more compassion for everyone around you, and a lot more empathy and compassion for yourself. And so some people report of like real change in vision. Don't worry, you can still see, you can see very clearly. You're not going to need glasses, but your vision shifts internally. And this is what we're always working through. We're always working on our internal states. And psilocybin relaxes you in your internal state. So you can deal with those traumas. You can deal with those emotional blocks. You can work through them. And you can really be in a safe space of able to process this trauma. And I always like to say as well, when you're taking psilocybin, you don't have to relive the traumas. And when I say that, I say you don't need to go back to the flashbacks. You don't need to go back to the situations. You don't need to talk about them if you don't want to. Your brain will work through processing and will release them from the body. And that's why I combine somatics. So when I say somatics, it's regulating your nervous system, whether that's through breath work, whether that's through various different hummings. And a lot of my clients love hearing me say bee humming, which I will explain in another episode. But we are self-nourishing and nurturing ourselves. We are remothering ourselves, right? Like this is a big change in our bodies. So we are giving back the love to ourselves, but we're doing it in reality. And it can work different for different people. And I'm not adverse to this, but I'm trying to say is if you microdose, you are in real life. So you're in reality. And versus if you're doing what they call a journey, which is a heavier amount of a plant-based substance. It depends your tolerance and where you're at and your level of trauma. But if you're doing a journey, it can last between like 6 to 9 hours. And that can be so healing and so cathartic and the most incredible thing ever. But if you are new to this world and you are doing like a journey, then you get back into the real world, how are you reintegrating? You've just done like 6 to 9 hours of like intense work and then you're back in your day job on the Monday. Like you're going to put yourself into shock and stress. And sometimes in really worst case scenarios, it can be psychosis. I don't want to scare people or fear people because it typically won't be. If you're working with a shaman, then it won't be. But just think about these things, like think about the long-term effects. Do you want to continue doing journeys because they work for you and you have a structured reintegration program afterwards? You have the right support, you have the right therapist, you have the right coach afterwards, you have a reintegration program afterwards. Perfect, great, fine. If you don't, let's take it slower because the slower, the better in most things. And I know for us type A's and founders, often what we don't want to hear. But if you look at your life has been running on fast track. And if you listen to this podcast, then it probably hasn't been working. So we got to do the opposite here. Okay. So also wanted to share like how it has impacted my own life personally. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I'm never someone that doesn't experience something before I study it, embody it, train it, and share it and educate others. And for me, what happened is I did a ayahuasca ceremony nearly 4 years ago, and I'd never done any plant medicine. I did it in what I thought was a healed place. I had recovered from eating disorders. So I had eating disorders from the age of 8 up to 30. And I worked heavily through my disordered eating through the pandemic and really wanted to now understand, like, from a plant-based medicine aspect, like why that was, what else I could do to like release it and feel safe in my body. Now, ayahuasca is a very intense plant medicine. It's beautiful. It's a female version. It's sometimes known as the mother plant. And so basically, if you take one sitting of ayahuasca, it's the result of 50 therapy sessions. Now, I did 2 with a day's rest in between in a retreat. And my first session was beautiful. I held back a lot because it's a scary place to be. I was with other people as well. I had a shaman and I had a shaman's helper. So I was supported, obviously. But for me, my first experience was, yeah, it was just very light, very fun, very playful. And then I sat with the shaman the next day and I shared and I said to her, I want to actually, I don't want to fanny around. When I say fanny around, I don't want to play around. Like this Scorpio me is like, I want to go deep. And I was like, I've come here to really heal these body issues. Mentally I feel healed, but this has been a 22-year pattern. Like, what's going on? And so, with my permission, we sat 2 cups, what they call. And when you take 2 cups, you're basically doubling your dose. And I don't know the exact measurements that she put in because it's all very intuitive. She's followed by the medicine herself. She is also taking the medicine herself while she's facilitating the ceremony. And I went through psychosis. I was bedridden. I had panic attacks. I ended up back in the UK. I couldn't leave my bed. And I was having insane flashbacks, insane, deep like, how do I word it? Not psychotic, but like deep. Like I could read people very easily, very quickly. I could read their minds. I could read their thoughts, and it was loud. That's what I'm trying to say. I could hear everything they were saying, their thoughts, and it was so overwhelming. I'd be in a hot yoga and have to leave because I could hear all the 28 people's thoughts. And it was just, it opened up immense like psychicness for me, but it opened up in such a level that I was not ready to receive because I hadn't done the body work energetically to feel safe to receive this amount of intuitive downloads or way of life. And so I then spent 2 years afterwards healing my body, healing my mind, healing myself to a place where I could function. And I'm sharing this because I don't want this to scare anyone at all. This happened to me for a reason, but what it taught me was the absolute importance of integration, which is what I pride myself on so much when I coach and work with people. And so I didn't want anything to do with plants, as anyone naturally would. And then mushrooms just kept following me. And I know people are going to be like, what? But often when you speak to people that are in this world, they say the similar response. Mushrooms just kept following me. Energy work just kept following me. I had done an energy work training 4 years before, and it was so easy to me in my hands. The energy in my hands, it was so easy. And I know as a kid, I had really healing hands. Like I had so much energy in my hands. I actually broke my arm as a child because it was so overpowering for me. And I feel very blessed to live in this life now where it's becoming widely accepted. The environments I'm in, the people I'm around, it's becoming widely accepted to heal through plant and energy healing. And I used a lot of that on myself to heal and work through. And then I thought, you know what? I need to take responsibility for what had happened. I don't want anyone else to go through this. I'm not going to go down the ayahuasca route, but mushrooms are calling me. So I went back to school. I studied mushrooms as a school, believe it or not. And now I'm trained and working with people and healing their bodies and healing, most importantly, their hearts. Because when we have a healed heart, we can receive and we can give in every way possible for ourselves and for others. And we're currently in a place where so many people have trapped trauma in their bodies that they are running from. They are running off. They don't know what they don't know. And I often explain this with the fight or flight response. If we have a nervous system that has been connected to our mother, that were at birth through an umbilical cord, our mom's nervous system for the 10 months that she was holding us in her womb is at an immense level of dysregulation, of anxiety, of nervousness. Say she's going through a stressful time, which no shame on the mother at all. But that is that's what she's been doing while she's been creating you and you've been growing in her tummy. And so that has become our natural way of nervous systems. We will then be born and continue to create that fight or flight response throughout our entire lives until we experience, and I hope this isn't the case for anyone listening right now, potentially a rock bottom. So a place where our lives just come to an absolute crash. We lose our jobs, we lose a business, our relationship breaks down, we lose a loved one, or someone in our family passes away, like something horrific happens. And we realize that we have been running off this absolute high level of cortisol our entire lives. We have not looked into who we are and what we are doing in our lives. We are running on trauma. And this is why psilocybin is a great way of working through that, because it's very gentle. It is very kind. And it opens up your heart and your soul for compassion, for empathy, for love, for yourself and for people around you. And typically a lot of people find that it can be a very relaxing experience. And like I say, you can function your day to day, you can drive, you can use machinery, you can stand up in your meetings, you're a normal human, but you're calm and you're clear headed, which can be very new for people. You will feel often a lot more emotion in your heart. There'll be a lot more better, deeper relationships with just everyone in your life, which is particularly important for business owners, for founders, for their teams. It's a whole ripple effect, right? If you are more compassionate and empathic and you think of your business and your teams that are involved, they're going to feel it. They're going to flourish. They're going to grow, and your business is going to grow, and everyone's going to thrive. If it's not working right now through this hustle mentality, and I don't mean do not take action, taking action is incredibly important, and that is drilled into my program. You're not going to be sat on a mushroom meditating. You're going to be taking action every week, because that is also part of the reintegration. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be noticing a whole new way of life while rewiring your nervous system to feel safe, to accept it, which goes back to my point from ayahuasca. There was no rewiring the nervous system. It was blitz, off you go, goodbye, enjoy your life, back to your day job on Monday. Couldn't function, period. Like, who does? After 100 hours of therapy session in a 48-hour period? No. So I always work on an 8 to 12 week basis. I can work more long term depending on the level of trauma and the level of expectations, but my starting places are 8 to 12 weeks, because we really need to train your nervous system. Think of it as the gym. You're at the gym, you're training muscles. What are you doing for your nervous system? What are you doing to strengthen it? What are you doing to allow it to feel safe, to have these emotions, to experience this level of emotional capacity to look after yourself and to hold space for yourself, right? It's self-regulation. And then I always say, when my clients are ready, off they go. We work through reintegration, and you learn all the tools and techniques to keep this going for yourself, because we're all inner healers. We often need guidance to start off with, but I don't have anyone that relies or I work on a really long-term basis, because you are your own healer. You just sometimes need a bit of guidance of where to start and these new practices and these new things to do. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a background on psilocybin, how I like to work, the education and the experiences that I've shared. And yeah, thank you for listening. And if anyone feels called to join my container, it starts on the 18th of November. I will pop the link in the show notes. Drop me a DM, follow me on Instagram or TikTok. And for now, have a beautiful day. Mwah.